Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Are you all telling us that the arresting officers covered up or lied about stopping that police van after Freddie Gray was inside the vehicle?
So what I will tell you is that we have stated from the beginning, when we have information that we're able to share, we will. And as the commissioner said today, it would be inappropriate for us to further comment on the status of the investigation.
Sources are saying that Freddie Gray died as a result of slamming his head inside the police van he was being transported in. The medical examiner says the wound matched the bolt in the area of the van Gray was held in. The autopsy reveals that there is no evidence that Gray hit his head on his own, and also that the injuries Gray sustained were exactly like those of someone that had been in a major car accident. An unidentified prisoner in the van with Gray said he heard Gray banging himself against the walls trying to injure himself. A second detainee also came forward and said he only heard a little banging. Investigators also discovered that the van carrying Gray made a previously unknown stop while Gray was in the vehicle, and that he was not strapped into a seatbelt, according to police. It's beginning to appear that Gray may have been subjected to the police brutality tactic known as a rough ride. In a rough ride, suspects are usually handcuffed in the back of the vehicle without being secured by a seatbelt. They are then assaulted by the erratic driving of the police van driver. One sharp turn or sudden stop can do as much or more abuse than an actual physical assault. The abused prisoner is then faced with a he said, she said situation. From the New York Times, for example, in June 1980, Freddie Franklin was walking on 75th Street on the south side of Chicago with a friend when he claimed a group of police officers wrongfully arrested him, placed him in handcuffs, and forced him into the back of a police wagon. He landed face down on the floor of the vehicle. Two officers drove the van recklessly and erratically in order to throw him around the floor of the van, he claimed, in a federal lawsuit. According to court documents, by the time Mr. Franklin arrived at the police station, he lay bleeding after biting off his lower lip. The same year Mr. Franklin was injured, another handcuffed man suffered a broken neck after he fell off a bench in the back of a police van after the vehicle made a sharp turn. He won a $900,000 settlement. At least two other Baltimore men, Jeffrey Alston and Dondi Johnson, were paralyzed after police van rides in separate cases that led to lawsuits. Mr. Alston, paralyzed from the neck down, settled for $6 million in 2004. 30-plus detectives were assigned to the case. Still, there are no definitive answers. The Baltimore Police Department has now turned the investigation over to the Baltimore State's Attorney Office.
If new evidence is found, we will follow it. If new direction is given by the state's attorney, we will obey it and we will follow through with the investigation. We will also further investigate at the request of the state attorney to bring forth any other witnesses that we find. I understand the frustration. I understand the sense of urgency, and so has the organization, and that is why we have finished it a day ahead of time. 6
officers are each facing multiple charges, including manslaughter, assault, misconduct in office, and false imprisonment, the Baltimore Sun reports. Goodson, who drove the van, has been charged with second-degree murder. It may appear that justice is being served in Baltimore, but peeking under the table laid out for the American populace reveals a full-on staging of United Nations intervention.
State Department Memorandum and Public Law 7277. Freedom from War, the United States Program for General and Complete Disarmament in a Peaceful World. Department of State, Disarmament Series 5. Office of Public Services, Bureau of Public Affairs. In it, they have the graphs that show the U.S. military being phased out, every other world army being phased down to zero, and a giant UN global peacekeeper force based in The Hague taking conscripts from every country, from every district. And the United Nations said on July 7th, 2000, that they wanted to have the Office of UNIDIR, the Small Arms Disarmament Bureau, move to have the complete abolition of civilian ownership of firearms, because civilian ownership of firearms threatens the legitimate power monopoly of the state. Civilian ownership of firearms threatens the legitimate power monopoly of the state. It's a very true statement except for one word, legitimate. And I said 2 weeks ago that you would then hear the White House and Michael Moore call for the complete disarmament of local police departments unless they go under total federal control. This is the 7277 plan. First they disarm the people, then they disarm the police, the state police, the local police, except for special paramilitary special event police that are the new Praetorian Guard. And then they serve under the UN. That's why Austin police, DC police, New York police are all in these international exchange programs. Sound reasonable on the surface, but they're all being unified into one global standardized command.
Meanwhile, protests are raging across the country. There have been demonstrations in Philadelphia, Boston, Chicago, Denver, Houston, Minneapolis, New York, and Ferguson, Missouri. More are underway in Seattle, Portland, Oregon, and Oakland, California. John Bound, Infowars.com.
General, what do you think about the FBI saying that there was a terror alert on Monday about a potential Fort Hood situation?
The police are shoving people, shoving Alex, shoving the crowd.
Here we go, folks. I'm being assaulted.
Whether it's the radio show, the news websites, documentary films, or the nightly news, Infowars is the tip of the spear.
Is this another false flag stage attack to take our civil liberties and put more homeland security while sticking their hands down on the pants on the streets?
It's up to us to set brush fires in the minds of men and women everywhere. And that's what PrisonPlanet.tv is designed to do.
You watch, the Assad regime is going to be blamed or accused of using chemical weapons against the so-called rebels.
What we see now is a war against reality. It's a war against the truth.
It's more vital than ever that supporters of freedom become members of PrisonPlanet.tv and share their membership with up to 11 friends and family. Visit InfoWarsNews.com today. Become a member, share your membership, and help take the InfoWar to the next level.